Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Philip Bargil and Goal.com's Mohamed Ali. Many outsiders looking in will think that Liga is over now after the PSG won the championship, but not so, as the battle for the Champions League places and avoiding relegation is really beginning to hot up. But before we delve into that, here are the latest headlines. 31 weeks into the season, and little has changed for Marseille. Another week, another poor performance at home. This time, it was the turn of Rennes, whose 5-2 win has placed them firmly in contention for the Champions League places alongside Lyon, Nice and Monaco. Ousmane Dembele continued his rich vein of form with a goal and an assist, while Yoann Gourcuff notched a brace for the visitors as well, who have now scored an impressive 13 goals in their last 4 league matches. Saturday's early match saw a correction of sorts as Saint-Etienne got back to winning ways with a 3-0 victory over Montpellier at the Chaldron, Les Verts notching 3 goals in the space of 10 minutes late in the second half. In the multiplex, Guingamp edged hosts Reims 1-0 thanks to a goal from Younous Sankharé, a massive result in the relegation scrap that sees the Breton club move to 15th, 5 points clear of the drop. Lille defeated Toulouse at the Stade Pierre-Mauroy thanks to Morgan Amalfitano, his goal on 30 minutes the difference, in a result that may finally see Les Dogs clear of the relegation worries. Troyes took an early lead through Javier Thiago at Caen, but the hosts battled back with goals from Adrien Yaye and Ronnie Rodelin, a 2-1 win, keeping Patrice Goron's side in the European places. Angers finally returned to winning ways this weekend too, earning 3 points for the first time in 8 matches in an emphatic 5-1 home victory over Lorient, Billy Keke-Fonfon contributing a goal and an assist. In Saturday's final match, Lyon kept up their push for a Champions League return, although a stubborn now made things difficult for Legon before an opportunistic Rachid Ghazal set up substitute Gaëtan Perrin on 84 minutes, and Alexander Lacazette later added a penalty, giving him 14 goals on the season, joint second with Edinson Cavani. Bordeaux and Bastia squared off in a scrappy affair in Sunday's early match, a 1-1 draw doing little to inspire in Ulrich Reims' debut for Les Girondins. More class was on display at the Allianz Riviera, however, as hosts Nice kept pace with Rennes and Lyon with a 3-0 defeat of visiting Gazalec, Hatem Ben Arfa scoring and assisting. Finally, Paris Saint-Germain suffered their first home league loss in nearly 2 years to Monaco. Leonardo Jardim's experimental 5-3-2 shackling the champions' attack with aplomb in a 2-0 victory that once again gave the Principality club a bit of breathing room in second. In Ligue 2, Dijon and Nancy continued to be in cruise control in the top 2 positions, while Le Havre and Metz have eliminated the chase for third, with both recording wins at the weekend. Clermont and Red Star face each other in a 5th versus 6th battle at the time of recording. A win will move either into the promotion places. Finally, Didier Deschamps selected his squad for the friendlies against the Netherlands and Russia for the international break. While there were a few surprises, West Ham Dimitri Payet rejoined the squad, his previous with Deschamps seemingly not standing in the way of his sublime form in pushing his club towards Europe. Leicester's N'Golo Kante received a first call-up, while some eyebrows may have been raised with the selection of André-Pierre Gignac over Alexandre Lacazette, who seems to be finally hitting his stride with Lyon. And that's all your news for this week. Remember, for all your latest needs, head on over to our website, www.getfootballnewsfrance.com, and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week with that game on Friday night as Rennes pulled off a 5-2 win at the Velodrome against Marseille. The home side are now just 6 points above the drop zone, having not won a home game since their 4-1 win at Bastia back in September. Mo, what is going on?
A good question. That's a very good question. Nobody knows the answer to it. It's not so much the game. Actually, surprisingly, you might be a bit bemused by what I have to say, but it's not so much the game itself. that's the problem. We've seen it coming, and we've seen in the last couple of seasons when things tend to get a bit heated, some of the players lose their heads. And for a pretty young squad, in the face of all those protests and the tension at the Velodrome on Friday, I wasn't majorly surprised at the fact that they succumbed to a powerful, quick counter-attacking Rennes side pretty quickly. What was the issue for me was after the game, which I'll touch upon in a bit, but it just goes to show, I think all the problems that Marseille have experienced this season are coming to a head at the exact same time. And not only are these problems quite big, the fact that it's coming 7 games before the end of the season, where the Champions League is still there to play for, or the Europa League, the French Cup final, possibly, if Marseille qualify through the semi-final first. A really interesting end to the season for all teams concerned. And Marseille are imploding at a rate that nobody would have seen. Bielsa or no Bielsa, the drama that we've touched upon in previous shows in August. It's quite surprising at how quickly the club is sinking. Rennes were absolutely fantastic for the first 20 minutes, and they could smell blood, they could smell fear, and they went for the jugular. Nobody in that game came out, from the Marseille side at least, came on top. To concede 5 goals is shocking. To concede 5 goals for the last 3 seasons at home 3 times is quite shocking. And again, you can point to the players, you can point to the lack of quality or the lack of pride the players feel. But again, the culpable parties that I've said over and over again are the manager and by proxy the president. And the president is acting on behalf of the owner. And we're just stuck in this spiral where, Marseille do poorly in the league, miss out on Europe. They miss out on Europe, they sell their best players. They sell their best players, they don't have a competitive team to qualify in Europe the following season. And you're just stuck in that little cycle. I mean, it breaks my heart a little bit to say this, but I think Friday was the first indication that Marseille are no longer a big team. I mean, obviously, a big team was obviously the supporters who are amazing. The club is such a historic identity, but currently, they are nowhere near the top. And that is the finger of blame points to the president and the owner.
It seems like a bit of a delayed reaction to. I mean, to me, I don't. Again, I don't mean to sound provocative in that way. But do you think the fans are being over expectant given the squad, because you do get a lot of draws. I mean, granted, Mandanda saved no doubt another 5-goal rout last weekend at Lorient, where he pulled out 5 world-class saves easily, and he does that most weekends actually. But do you think this squad isn't just supposed to be not at the top? It's supposed to be drawing most of their games aside from winning it, but they are not losing, which is something positive. But do you think the fans are overreacting? Or I mean, I really do believe that they had enough of draws and they wanted a bit of wins and a bit of better football. But can you actually do that when you sell Dimitri Payet, André Ayew, André Pierre Gignac, all those fantastic players, when Alessandrini is injured for most of the season? I mean, it is quite hard. I mean, Michel does have quite a tough job on his hands.
No.
I wouldn't have wanted the job. I mean, obviously I'm not a manager, but I wouldn't have wanted the job if it was offered to me, because it's such a depleted. It was a depleted squad, even though I reckon Le Brun did pull out a bit of rabbits out of the hats with Diawara, and we're probably not going to mention Diawara because there's not that much to say. But I just feel it's not an easy situation. I'm not sure what the expectations are.
Right. No, Phil. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. I think Marseille fans are a little bit over expectant, me included. But I think over expectation is a good thing. The fact that you're shooting higher than you're aiming, you're trying to aim higher than what you expected to get. But if you look at the league on table at the moment, or if you just look at the squads, I mean, Marseille at the bottom should be at least the fourth best squad on paper. Problems or no problems, quality of the players, the number of scouts that come to the Velodrome every week, and the club itself, they should be getting fourth, maybe fifth, at the minimum. Okay, Champions League might be a push every season, and it probably won't be the case in this current climate. But Europa League, finishing in the fourth or fifth, is very much doable. And we've got looking at the players in the squad, Cabela, Thauvin is back, Batshuayi, Alessandrini, Ocampos. They are good players, and on paper, I'm looking at the table now. Nice, who are in third, Caen are in sixth, Nantes in eighth, for example. These are teams that Marseille obviously have much better players, but the one thing they don't have in that squad is cohesiveness, togetherness as well. And it's just been a massive, I don't know what's gone on this season, but on the field and off the field, there have been major problems. And I honestly believe that Marseille, if it wasn't for Steve Mandanda, who's performed outstanding heroics in the last 4 or 5 games, I think we might have actually just keeping our head above water in 17th. And for a Marseille squad that has, how many internationals, how many, 2 in the France squad, and they are evidently our 2 best players. Batshuayi in the Euros, Fletcher, who I think has done an okay job actually since he's come from Sunderland, but he hasn't really had the chance to shine. And really good players, right, left, right, centre, and it's just surprising to see how Marseille in this position. And I think Michel is very, very culpable as well. I think it was a massive error in hiring him in the first place, and that's backfired completely. I honestly do not think he's a good manager at all. He does not big up the players or prepare them for the games pretty well. I thought initially in January he steadied the ship pretty well, but I think that was more Lassana Diarra and coming out as players and being on good form that has saved him. Michy Batshuayi obviously was scoring in I think 5 or 6 consecutive league games. We had our best period of form. We qualified in the Europa League, and I don't think that was down to him. I think that was down to the fact that the team just found itself into a really good patch of form. But since what's gone on in the last couple of weeks, he's ostracized. He's basically proved he sold basically a Marseille dummy in Lucas Silva, who's not Marseille standard, let alone Real Madrid standard. He's berated players in public. He's publicly admitted a couple of times that Marseille is a stepping stone to me. I'm here, and one day I want to manage Real Madrid in Spain, etc., etc. When he's not really focused on the job. His social media antics are there for the whole world to see, and he's berated the likes of Mendy, who young players who are impressionable, and he's absolutely just slanted them in the media. And these players are going to obviously think, I don't want to work for that manager. There's dressing room fractions, and especially, this is the current team that he's got, that he's worked with, but he's ostracized all the good things that Marcelo Bielsa did last year. I think Lebrun was looking for, a yes man, somebody that's the total opposite of Bielsa. Well, he's got one. Well, Bielsa was the top 3 or 4 in France. Michel's going to be the bottom 3 or 4 in France. Well, Bielsa, ensured that the team was together. Batshuayi came in Belgian media at the end of last month saying, the players all had WhatsApp conversation. We're all in one group. We were a family. It's not the case this year. Michel's fractured the players. Bielsa promoted youth players. Now we've got Bilal Boutoba, who's been labelled the next Zidane, who said, what, I don't want to be in Marseille next season. I want to go. There's no project. Of all the good things that I enjoyed under Marseille Bielsa, I feel like I've lost a year. It's pretty surprising when a player that's not even 18 yet has said I've lost a year of my career. It's really ridiculous, and I don't think that Marseille will get anywhere until Margarita Louis Dreyfus, the owner, sells the club, and that's a long shot in itself. Lebrun has come out on Friday and said, after the match, when Michel said, "I'm not going to resign," etc. Okay, I thought he was going to remain silent, and Marseille would just trundle along to the next game, and we'll see where we end up. But he gave an extraordinary interview to Canal Plus on Friday night and said, "Look, guys, I kept saying this. It didn't refer to the match. I've kept saying this for 4 years. I've had no money. Marseille's not really a sporting project. I'm literally trying to save the club from bankruptcy." Which was absolutely amazing. I mean, obviously we've rumored about what he's doing, but the fact that he came out so openly, so blatantly on Friday night and said, "Guys, look, I'm just trying the best I can. I'm just trying to save bankruptcy. I'm setting up the club to be sold by investors. Clear out the debt, clear out the negative aspects, make the club attractive for investors. That's my job." And he's becoming a bit of a dictator. Louis Dreyfus is out of the picture. She gave birth yesterday, and she's obviously not going to be in the picture for a while. She's not even plowing money into the club, which aside from football, that's totally understandable. But then don't sit doing nothing on the football club. Either sell it or use it properly. And he's now he's president, manager, delegate, because obviously Michel is nothing but a puppy. And he's a sporting director. He's all sorts of things. He's got complete control over the club, and that's exactly what he's wanted. And the fact that is, Marseille have no longer got interesting experts or hard-working staff that can take the club to the next level. And for a club that has 60,000 fans coming to the stadium every week, or used to at least. That has such a rich
that's
identity.
What I was going to say.
Yeah.
It sounds it is a bit empty sometimes. I was actually surprised it wasn't a full house against Bilbao.
Oh no, that was super surprising to me. But it's the fact that is that Marseille are going to lose even more money. The fact that no fans are there. I think I've been reading some rumored figures about 3 million euros over the course of the season in lost income. And it's just, it's so spectacular. I mean, we wouldn't have had this if they hadn't effectively screwed Marcelo Bielsa over in August. And even if so, they had the chance of some really, really interesting managers to pick from. But he picked a yes man. Michel, Greece is pretty simple. It's a simple league. Olympiacos are going to run it. It's effort not to win the Greek league with Olympiacos, who benefit from 10 years worth of Champions League money. He's failed in Spain, in Sevilla, and I can't remember the second team. I think it was Getafe. And as Real Madrid in the reserve squad was accused of nepotism. And I think somebody posted a really interesting tweet about the squad that he actually got relegated with Real Madrid Castilla, that include the likes of Mata, Negredo. All these young players are now in the forefront of European football. And who are in the reserve team at the time, and it's just really surprising. No one has got their head screwed on. The players don't, because they don't have a manager they can rely on, and the manager doesn't either. He speaks a good game, but 15 draws out of 31 games is an appalling figure. The gap has already narrowed between Marseille and the mid-table teams, obviously because of the financial conditions. But look at Lyon. They've had so much problems. They already sacked the manager, which I'm pretty sure it was difficult for all us to do. And they've come out fighting. Monaco have held steady. And they're no longer the team that they were as well. And Nice and Rennes have proved savvy. When was the last time Marseille have proved savvy?
It's a perfect question, isn't it? I mean, picking up on a point you made there, now that on paper, the internationals that you look, or former internationals, to say on paper, Mandanda and Kulu, Rolando's been around the Brazil squad before. Diarra, Cabela, Portuguese. Apologies. Yeah, I think he's born in Britain.
Yeah,
he's one
I think you're right there. Yeah.
Isla is a Chilean international. Batshuayi's obviously been in and around the Belgian squad, and then you look at a squad like Nice where it's Ben Arfa, and that's pretty much it for internationals, seasoned internationals. I know Ricardo Pereira has been a part of the Portuguese squad before, but that's limited. So focusing back on the game really on at the weekend, Philip, it was that first 15 minutes, it was almost hard to believe what was happening at some point. And unless you were a Rennes fan, you must have been off your feet.
Yeah, and one thing I really do sympathise with Marseille was those players who have a lot of pressure on their hands, who had a lot of pressure before the game, because it wasn't just during the game. I mean, you felt some kind of fans, a whole ras-le-bol, which basically translate as the fans are fed up. And that was before the game, so there was a lot of pressure on Michel to win the game. There was a lot of pressure on the players to perform. And what happens next is that you're 3-0 down within 15 minutes. But I thought Marseille actually played relatively well in the remainder of this first half. Scored a quite wonderful goal, and came back at 3-2. A lot of it has been said about Dembele having a great game, responding to pressure well. I just thought that Marseille probably didn't deserve to lose that bigger margin, and really tried to pick the game back at 3-3, which is quite good. But now I'm just a bit afraid where they would go. I mean, again, going back in August, when Bielsa resigned due to internal disputes with Le Brun, no doubt. I think it was a case of getting a man for the job, but now Mo has perfectly enumerated Michel's failings. I mean, not a particularly good motivator, and just things to say to the press that you just don't say if you believe in your players. That's basically what he's being criticised for. But I'm not quite sure where Marseille go from there, apart from. Yes, Marguerite Louis Dreyfus has to sell the club, and the club does need some money, and it's pretty urgent, because in France, Marseille will always have that aura of being the biggest club in the land by a considerable margin. The only club that comes close behind is Saint-Etienne. PSG are starting to get there. Lyon have built their fan base, obviously, due to having won the title 7 years in a row. PSG are going right down this path as well. Probably more success via Champions League, winning games in the Champions League, possibly progressing to the semi-finals, first time in history. But Marseille will always be there. There's no two ways about it. And even if they are in Ligue 2, they were actually in Ligue 2 at the beginning of the 90s. It's just one of those clubs where the support is so big, the pressure is extremely high, and it just won't go away. So everybody is a bit, it's a bit saddened to see the club in such a state. It has been worse before. I remember a season, I think it was 1999-2000, where they escaped relegation by a goal, which was very very tight. But everybody's basically wishing that some owner, some rich guy, very wealthy guy, would challenge PSG to make the title race exciting, and for obviously the rivalry to get something back, because right now, I mean, I don't. It's a bit dead right now, because they just live in different. It's almost as if they're not playing in the same league. Well, PSG, you may say are in the league of their own, but everybody wishes PSG and Marseille to be competitive between each other, and they always wish Marseille to beat PSG to beat Marseille. It's always one of the biggest games of the season, and I've come up with some sort of opinion saying that now the biggest rivalry in France is not even PSG versus Marseille anymore. It's Marseille versus Lyon, two sides who have basically the same problems, which is not having the wealth that PSG have, having some, but having to sell their best players to England or elsewhere because they need the funds. And to be honest, I honestly believe that Lyon versus Marseille has leapfrogged the Classico in terms of France's premier rivalry, which is extremely sad, really, because back a few years back, PSG Marseille was much bigger. Much bigger. Not even competitive. Just sometimes Marseille would win 3-0. Sometimes PSG would win 3-0. It would be a complete surprise. But just people would be expecting it, and viewerships would be much higher, stuff like that. And it's pretty much gone now, honestly.
Yeah. Well, going again back to the game, is for that first 10 minutes. I know you were watching, obviously, Mo, as well. I couldn't believe the amount of space they were affording a player the quality that we know of, Ousmane Dembele. I mean, he's been mentioned everywhere in the last couple of weeks, but he was afforded 10 yards every single time he picked up the ball in the centre of the field, and you thought. And he turned around as if in disbelief, thinking, "Well, I'll run at you if you like." Rolando was caught the back heels every time, and you were thinking, "What's the plan here?" The midfield was non-existent. It was just, let's give it to Ousmane Dembele, one of the most talented youngsters in the country and possibly in Europe at the moment, and let him have free rein of running at a defence and see what happens. I mean, it could have been much, much worse. I mean, if he had more talented players around him, I'm not trying to discredit the play of Rennes, because I thought they were exceptional, especially in that first 10 minutes. But if he was in a better team with better players, if that was a PSG or a Monaco or a Lyon, it could have been much, much worse. But talking again, you mentioned, Mo, that Michel really needs to be. He's more of a stopgap than anything. What manager needs to come in? I saw you mention the likes of Lucien Favre and Rudy Garcia. I was thinking someone maybe even like, it might be a bit of a long shot, but Jocelyn Gourvenec, because maybe it might be a bit of a step up for him. But is that the kind of manager they need for they need to look for the long term now? Rather
absolutely. Well, first to answer your first question about the game itself, I thought the first 10 minutes, I think the first goal was typical. So many times this season, Marseille have been, really, really offensive, going forward at every opportunity, peppering the other side with a few shots, and then, it's one attack, one counter attack, and the players are caught out. But I think because of the fact that they're 1-0 down in this hostile environment, and Friday was a special day in itself. The fact that there was protests and strikes and the like planned, and the fact that on this day of days that they've gone 1-0 down, and the fans who were waiting outside would be even more incensed when they took their seats. It was like, crap, they've suddenly lost their heads after conceding the first goal, and hence why the second and the third followed. It's a bit like I mentioned on the night, Brazil and Germany a couple of years ago in the World Cup. And I kind of saw the same looks on their faces. The haplessness, and the fact that they just felt so powerless of doing anything. And yeah, that's basically why. And there's no plan B. Plan A is don't concede, and plan B is if you do concede, go all out. But yeah, and to your second question, regarding Michel, he's successful would need to be someone more long term. I think the language barrier hasn't worked. The fact that we've hired a foreign coach. We worked with Marcelo Bielsa, it worked fine, but Michel obviously still can't speak French very well. And the fact that he's ostracizing his players a little bit, the language gap seems to be even bigger now. And I think that Marcelo would do pretty well to hire a French speaking coach next, to obviously ensure that his messages are correctly translated on the pitch and his tactics are replicated as well. Jocelyn Gourvenec, who I think I admire a lot. But I think the job is a bit of a step up for him. And in times of turbulence, I think it will be too much of a step. But an internationally renowned French-speaking manager like Lucien Favre, like Rudy Garcia as well, who's available, would be welcomed. But obviously, the outstanding favourite of Marseille fans would be Jorge Sampaoli, the ex-Chile coach, who is obviously the splitting image of Marcelo Bielsa in terms of his tactics. But whether Marseille would go for that again, or whether the president would go for that again, it's quite far-fetched. Unfortunately,
I was thinking another fiery South American that has a problem with authority. It might be another.
Unfortunately,
exactly. I mean, that's a great point, Nathan. Because what went wrong with Bielsa was also that he was an extremely good manager, and that Le Brun was made up to be the bad guy during his
absolutely
era. And Le Brun won't want that to come back. I mean, he wanted the yes man. He got the yes man, and he wants to keep the yes man. If they're going to change the manager, I think it's going to be also a yes man if Le Brun is still in charge of the club, which he probably will be, unfortunately. Except that maybe he'll speak French this time, which is
just to add.
Go ahead.
Just to add, the fact, it will have to be a yes man, but I think foreign coaches will know about the situation in Marseille at the moment as well. And for me, I don't think Le Brun is any way malicious. I just think he's bone dead stupid. I think that he's just not qualified. He's in a role that he's not qualified for. I think that he's in an office with all the trappings of power and decisions, obviously, which you should be taking with expertise, or at least voices of experts around you, and having good consultations with people. But he's not, and I think he just likes the control, and he's got very strict orders from the owner, who I think they've been speaking about selling the club for a while now. Just rid Marseille of all the negative things that would probably scare away investors. Reclaim the subscriptions from the fans. Make the club attractive again, and decrease the wage bill and all of those things. But obviously, he's still got to make a competitive team, and the fact that he's gone for cheap loans, has-beens, or obviously would say at the time looked like has-beens. Obviously, Lisandro Diarra proves that very, very wrong. But he's just gotten every single decision pretty wrong, including the choice of coach. And maybe Bielsa made him look like an absolute con artist in his first press conference. He made him look like an absolute fool. But at the end of the day, Bielsa's too expensive, too stubborn. He could go off on one at any time, and also he was respected too much. He was loved too much, and I think they would never have that sort of popularity that he enjoyed. And obviously for them, it's the president or the owner is no man is bigger than the club sort of thing. And I don't think they can deal with that. I think they're just very, very, very stupid. And he needs to go. I think before I personally wouldn't mind. I don't think the owner is obviously the problem. But if Margarita Dreyfus stays, at least there's that air of predictability. I don't want Marseille to become like another Malaga when owner comes, promises riches, and runs away with strips the club for assets, etc. That's still a problem. But Margarita Dreyfus, obviously the history of her husband, and the fact that she's been there, once or twice. She injected 20 million euros in 2011. She helped the club renegotiate the Velodrome loan, the rents, a couple of years ago. She's been there, once or twice when we needed her. But I think a really good sporting director, a really good president would find a way to make the team competitive game. Even if it takes years. And Marseille, initially, they want Marseille to become like an Arsenal. The funds that you have available are through income. Stadium, competitions, TV, etc. And a good sporting director and a good president would ensure that happens. But obviously, we don't have that.
Yeah, I think we could talk about Marseille until the cows come home. Really,
Yeah.
but I think you can't go wrong if you can get Lucien Favre in. I think he's a terrific manager who did wonders at Mönchengladbach. I think if they can manage to go all out and convince him, I think that might at least move them in the right direction for the time being. But we'll move on.
I look forward to the summer.
I hope that was therapeutic for you as well, Mo.
I think it was a little bit.
Yeah, we're heading into the late game on Saturday night. We thought we could have a very close battle for second bubbling up, but Monaco went and ruined that by beating Paris Saint-Germain 2-0 at the Parc des Princes. Philippe, are Monaco impossible to catch now? They've got that 4-5 point gap ahead of Nice and Lyon.
Yeah, I've always been of the opinion that Lyon could, with the sacking of Fournier and Genesio having started okay at Lyon, had a few cagey performances, but Lyon did beat PSG and they are winning their games, which is great to see. They stupidly dropped 2 points at Rennes last Sunday. So I'm still of the opinion that no, it's not over. Why? Because Monaco have to travel to Lyon in the penultimate game. Saying this, Lyon, Rennes, Nice, and I think that's pretty much it. I honestly don't see Caen catching Monaco at this moment in time. Saint-Etienne is probably a push as well. Well, we absolutely discussed it with the result because Monaco did win at the Parc des Princes for the first time in almost 2 years and played extremely well. It defended it extremely well. There was a lot of people on Twitter saying that PSG were going to win this 5-0 because they had 80% possession. But Monaco played, Jardim was tactically astute. Ricardo Carvalho had a fantastic game. I really thought he was very good. Jameson, first game in Ligue 1 at the Parc des Princes. That's pretty much a bold move from Jardim. And I thought Monaco all around looked quite good, and you actually wanted them to win that game because they were giving the ball to PSG. PSG were playing some good stuff in the middle, but when it came to the last pass, they were, when Zlatan makes a extremely predictable pass in the opposition, get the ball back. Well, every single player played like Zlatan last night, including him, who was actually quite shocking. Missed 2 open goals in the second half, so that's not very good. And you just felt that PSG treated that game like a friendly because they're champions now, and all the focus will be on the Champions League and winning the two cups, which is a shame. But take nothing away from Monaco. Monaco defended extremely well and took their goals well, and actually could have been worse. It's people will remember this game as being the one that PSG didn't really want to win, but PSG did not lose against someone who played badly. They were very, very, very good, and it is performances like those of last night that gets you a second spot. But I still think it's very much on. I mean, there's not just that game at Lyon, but I watched them at home to Reims last Friday, I think it was. It was at home to Reims, which they actually did not deserve to draw. They drew 2-2, but they didn't deserve to draw. I think that they'll lose a couple of points down the way, and Lyon could be able to salvage something. I really don't see anyone, however, but Lyon to stop Monaco getting second. I don't think Nice have it in them. Rennes, I really don't believe so. I doubt Rennes would finish in the top 3. I think to me it's between Monaco and Lyon.
Yeah, I think it was a slightly strange game that PSG seemed like they were playing at a canter for the first 45 minutes, like it was a stroll in the park, and it was relatively simple for them to move the ball around and create little chances here and there. But
Savannah didn't have much to do.
Yeah, it was just a case of one of those games where if you don't score when you're on top, you can always get punished by a side that are good enough to do it, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think in Monaco that saying holds true. I think they were very well organised. They absorbed the pressure really, really well, but I think PSG lacked the conviction. They lacked the will almost. Everything seemed a bit, half-baked. Even if they were on top in the first half, they just weren't sharp at all. and you can kind of see it coming. Monaco were growing in ascendancy throughout the game, and eventually in the second half made the breakthrough. But like Phil said, the fact that they've treated this game, and we've spoken before in the French football community about how PSG treat the league at times. Yeah, they've been champions, and so the downside of being champions so early is that there's nothing much to play for. They've got 7 weeks, still at least 2 months to wrap it up. They don't even receive the title until the final home game of the season, and you can just imagine that there'll be maybe 1 or 2 more defeats as they focus elsewhere, which is a bit of a shame, because if they do kind of slip up and don't do well, then it kind of takes away from the excellent season they've had anyway. If the league table the final league table doesn't reflect their major superiority. But Monaco were absolutely amazing last night, and it's what I respect Leonardo Jardim for. He gets a little bit of criticism for being a bit boring, a bit conservative, but he's done really well yesterday, especially obviously with the absences of Silva, Moutinho, etc. They were well organised. I think against them, they're a really difficult side to play against. They are well structured, and they took their chances really well.
Yeah, and I think Jardim did well to take a little bit of a risk by trying something a bit different with the 5-3-2, trying players like starting Mbappe, Lota, and the defender. I'm just trying to remember that. Jameson, yeah. Starting that kind of player in that kind of game, I think was a really daring move, and I mean, it eventually paid off in the end, because they hold them off. I mean, I think Thomas Lemar, again, since he's returned from injury, has been an excellent player, and again, he was that creative outlet that they really needed, and helped them see them over the line. But it's been an interesting season, really, for Monaco. They've seemed to have slowly, surely, slightly, quietly gone about their business. How important would finishing second in the league be for them, especially heading into next season, Philip?
I honestly believe that it won't make much difference to the strategies the club has adopted, which is to buy cheap and sell quite high. I think that the strategy will keep on going, whatever the results are, which is quite astute from everyone around the club. Unfortunately, I don't see them getting out the checkbook and spending massively on players if they do get direct Champions League qualification. This season, they've proven it has been proof again and again that French clubs don't go through the Champions League playoff, which is a real shame. It's been 4 years in a row now, I think. So basically want to avoid having to play that playoff against probably a very good side, because they lost it this season, and I think that the same applies for Monaco, for Lyon and Nice. They don't want to finish third; they want to finish second. Third is now kind of a not I want to say a sure ticket for the Europa League. It should be something to validate for the Champions League, and it's not the case anymore. But no, I don't see Monaco. I don't see, going back on the original question, I don't see Monaco just spending lots and lots of money on established players. I think they'll be ready to build from the squad they already have, just like they did last summer. They will get Corentin Jean from Troyes, because they bought it last summer and they loaned him for this season, and so they won't get him in this summer. So it's that type of prospect that we should be expected to see at Monaco.
And it would be interesting. I mean, I can remember this time last year we were thinking Monaco were primed really to try and take PSG on, but the same situation this year, and you can't feel any confident about that with the players they've got, and I can't imagine them keeping in Bernardo Silva this summer. I assume a bigger club will come in for him and then build from there. But They're plodding on along nicely, and I think heading into the Champions League, they're probably the best team out of the ones left. Lyon may be the closest to them, but it'd be good to see them actually in the Champions League when they did so well last time they were in it. But we'll move on to the international break that's looming, and Didier Deschamps has announced his squad for the friendlies against the Netherlands and Russia. He's recalled Dimitri Payet, although it seemed like he never would. Andre Pierre-Gignac's back in, as well as first call-ups for N'Golo Kante and Kingsley Coman as well. Mo, what was the biggest surprise in the announcement from Deschamps for the squad?
Oh, well, for me, I think I kind of expected Deschamps to mix the team a little bit. Obviously, it's the last squad call-up before the Euros, before the squad is revealed on May the 12th. But what I was surprised about was actually Jeremy Mathieu of Barcelona, and not so much the fact that he's been called up, but in place of much better alternatives like Aymeric Laporte and Umtiti possibly, and Perrin, there's Mangala as well. There's just four choices. The fact that he's been called up and I don't think he's been playing that well at Barcelona. I don't think he's even been in the team much of the season. The fact that he's been given the chance and still scored an own goal of the weekend against Villarreal as well, that surprised me a little bit. In terms of the attackers, I think Karim Benzema's troubles probably won't see him called up, and the fact that those five forwards, Lacazette hasn't been called up, but I don't really see that as much of a surprise. I don't think that he'd probably be on the reserve list. I mean, if they do call a squad of 30, I think he may be in that 7 that miss out. For me, he's done well in Liga this season recently, but over the campaign, he's been below average, especially compared to last season. And the fact that if Benzema does make it, he's got even less chance. But it probably will be Giroud up front as the number one striker, on the wings with Griezmann or Martial or Payet, or even if he decides to play in that sort of formation. And I think Gignac would actually be the number 2 striker if it happens. Obviously, as a Marseille fan, that would delight me a lot. But I think it's just the fact that he's looking for that sort of profile. I think it's not so much Lacazette, and his scoring or streak or lack of. That's a problem. I think that he's looking for some sort of alternatives. I think Deschamps still hopes Benzema will make it, even though that looks a bit unlikely considering last week's new revelations as well. But I don't think Lacazette's mission is a major surprise, to be honest.
Philip, what do you think to the squad? Is there anything that really jumps out of the page for you?
It's not that predictable a squad. I thought it was good to see Kante called up. However, the news got out the day before he was supposed to make the announcement. I don't think Deschamps has been a Jeanet's biggest fan, so I think it's good that he's being called up. I think he's had a good season. And especially, Sanyo has basically not been playing much at Manchester City, and when he has been playing, he's not playing in a side that is in a confident mood right now. I'm a bit surprised to see Digne over Kurzawa, being completely honest, but I don't watch Italian football all that much. Not that many surprises in defence. In midfield, it's great to see N'Golo Kante making the squad. That's really good. Moussa Sissoko is not having the best of times at Newcastle, but he's still getting called up. And yes, finally, Deschamps caved and called Payet. No, I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure these two hate each other, or at least Deschamps doesn't like Payet or something. Not sure what happened at Marseille between those two, but he seems to be trying to find frailties to Payet's game, which is something that is very hard to do these days. in order not to call him. It reminds me a bit when Mourinho was criticizing Juan Mata while Juan Mata was playing quite well. They said he's not defending well enough and stuff like that. But anyway, Gignac is good. I think it's was a lot of travelling for playing two friendlies, but I think Gignac really wants to make the squad. Even though he plays on another continent, Martial is good to keep being called up. So all in all, no real surprise. I would say my biggest surprise was him taking Dino over Cordova.
Well, from my knowledge of Italian football, Dean's having at least a solid season for Roma, and they are playing much better recently. I think you made an excellent point, Mo. I have no idea why Jeremy Mathieu's in there, but you've got enough experience in that back line. Koscielny's 30. Sanko's had plenty of international games. Why not give someone like Laporte or even like you mentioned then Umtiti maybe as well. Perrin maybe might be a bit of a risk because he's only just come back from injuries and been a little bit more recently. Yeah, I don't understand why he's picking Moussa Sissoko. Really, I know he offers a similar option to what would essentially be the bench option if Pogba's not working. Moussa Sissoko is probably the closest to him style-wise, but I don't know why you don't try. I think
it's probably also versatility. I think Sissoko offers a few more options. If there was an injury, he could play a bit further forward, but even a little bit on the right as well. And I think he's got an interesting profile, and I think that's what probably Deschamps is going for.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think the way he picks his squad is not like most managers. Obviously, as a World Cup and Euro winning manager, I think he picks his squad a lot more differently. It has to be about harmony. He's trying to, I think, maybe even replicate what he's used to, in the squads of 98 and 2000s. It's not so much about quality, even though they were obviously quality. You need the balance between experience and youth, a good attitude and tournament experience, etc. And the like. And that's why you see a few interesting names. I think the problem with France this summer is that they're looking at the forward line. Obviously, they've got lots of quality, but they're not heavily experienced. Griezmann's first international tournament was only the last World Cup, and 24 caps isn't really that much nowadays. Giroud, probably only in the last 3 or 4 years has been in the France squad. Gignac has been absent for 5 years, and Martial and Koeman have only really blossomed in the past year. And the fact that France are playing on home soil and the expectation will be massive as well. That forward line isn't majorly experienced, but we'll see on the day whether they can conjure out something. I think the next 2 games will be really an interesting test to see whether they can flourish.
Yeah, I think the really good thing about that forward line is you mentioned there's the lack of experience, but there's a lot of quality in a lot of those young players, and you can do a lot of interesting things that you can try in these friendlies. I mean, we mentioned Giroud and Gignac and Benzema as the central striker, but there's an opportunity in one of these games to even try Griezmann, who plays there for Atletico. He's a regular on his own kind of striker. Try him, maybe Martial on a wing and Payet on the wing, and then maybe bring someone like Koeman on, who has been in excellent form. I think he's got, other than if you skipping last weekend, he had 4 assists in 2 games between Werder Bremen and Juventus, and he was really excellent as soon as the moment he got any space. Koeman against Juventus, he provided quality, and I think he's going to be a really exciting player to watch for the tournament as well, especially possibly coming off the bench. But
I think it's great actually that Koeman has broken through, because there's been some kind of a lack of natural right wingers for France for the past couple of years. A lot of players were playing on the left hand side. I'm talking especially about the Ribéry era. Which was quite good, and you had these years. I think it was something like two to 4 years where nobody was wanting to play on the right hand side. It was more of a chore than a choice. And Koeman is, I mean, if you, I think we've all seen Bayern versus Juventus last week, which was an absolutely amazing game, and Koeman scored the fourth goal of Bayern Munich and had a real hand in Bayern equalising and not going out of the Champions League, and he played absolutely sensationally well. And it's such a great talent, and I am really actually expecting him to play at least a half in one of those games, hopefully.
I wouldn't be even surprised if he does start one, because he is a regular now. I think he would even admit himself at Bayern Munich. They do tend to start him on a fairly regular basis, especially with Robben and Ribéry's injury history. But just very quickly going back on my point of Sissoko, might be a minor bias coming out, but I don't understand why Morgan Schneiderlin's probably not there instead of him. I think he's probably in much better form, and gives them an option of playing a more defensive-minded midfielder, like if they needed to, rather than Sissoko's, yes, versatile, but I don't think he's. I think Newcastle fans will agree that it can be as versatile as you like. You need form at the moment, but
I think it's a whole Sacco situation all over again. I mean, I can't really understand why Sacco keeps getting picked. I mean, you could pick someone else. I would think there are some Ligue 1 defenders who are better than Sacco. I don't think he's having a particularly good season at Liverpool. I think it's more a case of that those players, he gets on fine with them, and he had a great time at the World Cup in Brazil with them. So he wants to keep them on. He wants to say, okay, you're my guys. You didn't let me down in Brazil, so I'm going to keep picking you. Which it is quite logical in some way, but it is over trusting players that are not performing, which is a bit dangerous also.
Going to the games ahead now, really, what will Deschamps want to see from his players in these two games? I mean, there's not many games left before the finals now, and they are starting to slowly ramp up in competitiveness. What will Deschamps be expecting?
I mean, they're playing Netherlands and I think Russia, wasn't it?
Yes.
And first of all, it's confirmation. I think what he doesn't want to see is doubts. In fact, these players that he's picked have performed aptly in the shirt. I think what he wants to do with other coaches have the luxury of chopping and changing, whether it be England, Spain, etc., where if these March friendlies don't work out, they've got time to think about it. Whereas Deschamps, the fact that the pressure of being the host nation, and there'll be obviously a much bigger spotlight, probably the biggest that some of these players have even ever faced in their careers. And he doesn't want, things must be done to avoid it being a massive failure. So I think the squad that he plays, I think what we could expect would be that in either the first or second game, there'll be wholesale changes as well to give some of the other players a chance. I think out of the 23, we probably could be seeing 18, 19 play in those two games. So a good chunk of the squad will be tested over the next week and a half. What he needs to see is you'll be interested to see, Kante and Payet, especially Payet. I think he needs to really grasp his chance. I think Deschamps has caved in, like Phil said, rather than him picking them on his attributes and form at West Ham. I think he's picked him because the media sensation, if he didn't, would have been quite prohibitive for France and for Deschamps to work under for the next couple of weeks. So it's good to see him in the squad, and I hope Payet translates his club form to the national team, which is what Deschamps criticised him about a couple of weeks ago in Canal Football Club. Regarding the forwards, I think they just need to work together. There's nothing worse than forwards that don't gel pretty well. But if they do click really well, then they've got something to work with heading into the Euros. I think those five, Benzema aside, I think those five might actually be the ones that go to the Euros if Lacazette doesn't, enjoy a really good run of form. And I think Gignac will drop for Lacazette or Coman even, which might be a shame. But I think also there's a couple of players that are on the coattails. They're just on the edge, and a bad game could tip them over it. I think Johan Cabaye is in there because Deschamps loves him.
Absolutely.
He hasn't been that good for Crystal Palace recently. They haven't won a game, I think, since December in the Premier League. And Schneiderlin is obviously, the centre midfield. There's a lot of really good players, and Kante's introduction as well has kind of narrowed that in. Without Kante and without Las, two players that we didn't really expect to be anywhere near the France squad in September, let alone last year or whatever. We didn't expect them to be there, but that's just added to the ferocity of the competition. And there's Gonalon, Maxime Gonalon, who's a really efficient player at Lyon, and there's other choices such as Kondogbia as well, and Gilavogi at Wolfsburg, and it's just like there are players that are ready in the business end of the season to make an impact, and I think that defense aside, I think every other place up for defense and goal aside, every other place is up for grabs still, and I think we could be in for some interesting squad selections if these players don't perform. But if France win and they win impressively, and Deschamps' efforts, are recognised, and that this squad is actually making a statement of intent, then that would be the best case scenario.
And it's interesting to think that's not even mentioning Hatem Ben Arfa, who's had a very good season as well.
I think he should be in the squad, to be honest. I think I was pretty surprised to see his name, and it's good to see that these players, enjoying a bit of a renaissance as well. And it just goes to show that it doesn't matter where you take your career. If you play well, you'll be in the mind of the coach, the national team coach, and I think he offers a lot. I think he's been absolutely monstrous in his dribbling for Nice and his performances, and I think he'll benefit from another go at a tournament as well.
And a big international week ahead. That's all for us this week. My thanks to Philip and for Mo. Remember to follow Mo on Twitter at Muhammad Ali _93. Thank you everyone for listening at home. Abiento and have a good evening.